The headlines on RT International. Video appears allegedly showing U.S. commandos fleeing a Syrian town under a barrage of abuse actually hurled at them by American-backed rebels.
Non è che devo fare una recita a copione per far vedere che siamo tutti uniti.
European disunion. Italy's Premier snubs a joint media conference at the EU summit, saying he won't pretend Europe's united any longer. And Americans' trust in the media hits a new low. The latest survey shows less than 1 in 3 people actually believe what their news sources are telling them. Just turning midday here in Moscow on this Saturday. Thanks for joining us. It's RT International. American special forces have reportedly fled the Syrian town of Al-Rai near the Turkish border after being threatened by US-backed rebels. And this is the alleged footage of the incident that surfaced online. Rebels, reportedly belonging to a group backed by the US, are heard chanting anti-American slogans and threatening to attack them. Another video also posted online purportedly shows Pentagon troops in a vehicle convoy passing through the same area amid a similar barrage of harassment.
هاي الأمريكان هنا تخرج من بلدة الراعي. الله أكبر والعزة الله. لا نقبل أمريكان يقاتلون معنا. ما نقبل. الله أكبر. وهاي ما شاء الله بعض من الألوية تشارك معهم. لا نقبل أي أمريكي يشارك معنا. نحن مسلمين وليس كفار. يلا.
Well, the group that was allegedly threatening US forces has also posted an online statement demanding that the Americans leave the area.
نحن تجمع أحرار الشرقية بالإضافة لعديد من الكتائب والفصائل الجيش الحر العاملة في ريف حلب الشمالي. نحن جيش حر ونبقى جيش حر. نرفض قتال الأجانب مقاتلين الأمريكان على الأرض السورية، وذلك بسبب مساندتهم لعصابات الPKK الإرهابية الانفصالية. نعلق كافة أعمالنا العسكرية في معركة درع الفرات حتى خروج جنود الأمريكان من هذه المنطقة.
For more on this, let's bring in our correspondent in the region, Lizzie Phelan now, who can bring us up to date on what is the news still coming out of that troubled region. Lizzie, good to see you. It would appear from some of these videos we've been seeing that US-backed rebels don't want the US there. Is that confusion in the ranks, dissension in the ranks? Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, despite the Americans consistently insisting that the rebels they back have been through careful vetting procedures to ensure that they are so-called moderates, yet again we're seeing the Americans being embarrassed by their supposedly carefully selected partners, this time, as we've just seen, so-called Free Syrian Army fighters saying that they will slaughter American commandos accompanying them on the battlefield against ISIS. So really this latest incident raising many questions about the Americans' strategy towards rebel forces in Syria. Number one, where are these so-called moderate ground forces that the Americans say that they're backing? Two, will the Americans review their vetting procedures for selecting rebels that they give military aid to? And three, will the Americans stop giving aid to groups that we've seen have committed atrocities, or this latest group that has threatened America's very own forces?
When you talk about American aid going to these various so-called moderate opposition rebel factions here, the aid one would assume isn't humanitarian aid. We're talking weapons, we're talking financing as well. The American aid going to these groups who are supported by America, now saying get out America. Any response from Washington to all of this?
Well, the State Department did respond to this incident, saying that if it turns out to be true, then of course the rhetoric is unacceptable. However, the State Department spokesperson, John Kirby, didn't go so far as to say that it would prompt the Americans to review their procedures for selecting rebels to provide military aid to, and nor did he go as far as to say that this incident would stop the Americans from supporting this particular group, as I've said, that has threatened American commandos in Syria. I think we can take a quick listen now to some of his comments.
Obviously, that kind of rhetoric is not acceptable as part of what should be a coalition designed to go after a common enemy, which is Daesh. And we certainly wouldn't condone that kind of bombastic and pugilistic rhetoric. But I would say, as I said before, this is, let's not talk about the opposition as a monolith. And we have long acknowledged that there are groups that are more moderate than others. I mean, that is.
Now, Kirby seems to try to deflect from the question at hand and just continue to say that the Americans would continue to support moderate opposition forces in Syria despite the serious problem or serious flaws in the American procedures for identifying moderate rebels. I think we can listen to a little more of his statement.
We will continue to support those moderate opposition forces, those moderate forces, I should say, because they're not, it's not just about opposition. It's not really about the opposition to Assad. It's about the fight against Daesh. So we're going to continue to support those forces in Syria that are able and willing to press the fight against Daesh.
So interestingly there, we can hear that his comments also highlighting how the Americans' broader strategy on Syria is continuing to unravel, and they continue to do the U-turn away from their previous insistence that the fight to remove Syria's President Bashar al-Assad is just as important as the fight against ISIS.
All right, Lizzie Phelan, thanks for that. And America's conflicting loyalties in Syria have sparked yet another extraordinary situation on the battlefield. It came as one Washington ally, Turkey, was gearing up to attack another, the US-backed Kurds. And potentially deadly clashes were avoided only at the last moment when American flags were suddenly hoisted across the Kurdish settlement. Kurdish officials say an American military representative told them to raise the stars and stripes to prevent the attack by Turkish troops. Former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras says recent developments point to a deep crisis for the Pentagon in Syria.
The Obama administration's policy up to this point has been totally confused and contradictory. Now it's just reaching the point of bizarre. Let's look at what we have here. We have U.S. special operations personnel accompanying the Turks. Let's call them ally number one in their incursion into Syria. And we know that the primary target is not Daesh for the Turks. It is the Kurds, who are also an American ally. Let's call that ally number two. Now we have so-called ally number three, the Free Syrian Army elements, threatening these Americans who are operating with ally number one that they're going to slaughter them, that they don't want any Americans and Christians here. Now, this subgroup that did this, supposedly, is Ahrar al-Sham, which is a really nasty piece of work. It's as Wahhabist, as radical, as violent as al-Nusra or ISIS, but I guess they're part of the moderates here because, well, we say so. This has reached the point where if you were to put this in a work of fiction, it would not be deemed plausible to the reader.